Barack Obama gets called out for the whole cause of this whole China election interference, and the Democrats are trying to brainwash you. Welcome to Doug in Exile. First, long time ago, Tulsi Gabbard exposed the burn bags that Barack Obama hid.
Fox News alert the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, releasing a bombshell report today that shows a conspiracy by a sitting president, Barack Obama, and his intel agencies to sabotage the president-elect, Donald Trump, brainwash the electorate, and undermine the legitimacy of an election.
I'm going to talk about the brainwashing of the electorate because liberals want you brainwashed. I'm going to give you tons of examples here, Loctite cases. This is Trump from his speech calling out Barack Obama and the burn bags.
Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky.
We got lucky is one way of putting it. I'd say we got blessed. Here's Tulsi Gabbard on the burn bags that she found.
And you've also found many bags of information. I think they call them burn bags. They're supposed to be burned and they didn't get burned, having to do with how corrupt the 2020 election was. And when will that all come out?
Mr. President, I will be the first to brief you once we have that information collected. But you're right, we are finding documents literally tucked away in the back of safes in random offices in these bags and in other areas, which again speaks to the intent of those who are trying to hide the truth from the American people and trying to cover up the politicization that was led by people like John Brennan and James Clapper and others that have caused really immeasurable harm to the American people and to our country.
This is an older video. I don't know from when it was. I believe it was from February of this year, but I can't remember. Okay, that's not what's important. What's important is the actual brainwashing of you by them. And the perfect example is how the media dealt with Trump's speech regarding China. They created a straw man and said he didn't prove the election was stolen. He never claimed that's what he would do. Here's a quick quote from Glenn Beck on what Trump actually delivered versus what the Democrats are saying through propaganda, what they want you to think that he said.
The president never said last night that the election was stolen. He never said last night that they had stolen the election or stuffed the ballot box or anything like that. What the president showed last night were documents that proved China ran the largest known theft of American voter data in history. 220 million files. That's your name, your address, your phone number, your party affiliation.
Now, remember, the mainstream leftist brainwashing media in Obama style has to make sure that you recategorize all these facts that Glenn Beck just showed. That 220 million of our voter data was leaked, social security numbers, blah, blah, blah. And now the media will collectively say, this is a nothing burger. You could cut together the clips and write a song of all of them saying he didn't prove the election was stolen. He didn't prove the election was stolen. He never set that out as a goal. They invented it so that you're supposed to discredit what he did discover. They're also giving the same excuses. Thomas Massey wrote all of the data that China got was all, available publicly. It's a nothing burger. It's not a nothing burger. If it was such a nothing burger, Thomas Massey, why won't you turn over your voter rolls to Harmeet Dillon so Trump can get his voter rolls? Kentucky won't turn them over because it is a big deal. Here's more Glenn Beck.
Everything run through a dedicated exploitation unit in Beijing. They have a whole building for this, okay? Now, I want to give the fact checkers, the first bonus point because on the nose, look at you. You can do some work. There is no evidence, none, that China reached into a voting machine and flipped a ballot or changed the outcome of 2020. But that wasn't the charge.
This is what it's about, is they're trying to change the charge. It doesn't matter what you believe about if they switched votes or not. I personally don't. It doesn't matter. We prove they had access. We prove they got in. Here's how the Hill, which is another scumbag Democrat, lying rag. I'm going to show you how this works now. This is marketing, guys, and part of what my channel does. I hope you've subscribed if you want to learn the truth. This isn't some deep, big brain dive. I'm just showing you publicly what Barack Obama did with the leftist media, and they're still doing it today. And this is Exhibit A at the Hill. Look at the commercials that I'm getting on the Hill. They're all these mixing boards that I tried to get my sound to work right on this channel. So now they're pumping all this out to me. The Hill says live updates. I go, oh, good. On the U.S. hits Iran energy targets and bridges. Ooh, we need that information. And then look at this subheadline here. Fallout persists after Trump election speech. What? I thought we were talking about Iran. And then they have to push out to you that you think there's fallout over it. So here's the first couple paragraphs where they talk about the intensified fighting, 3 miserable paragraphs about Iran. And then suddenly they come in with this. Meanwhile, Trump has faced criticism over his recent primetime speech when he revamped the 2020 election fraud claims and accused China of interfering in the election that he lost to former President Biden. It's the he lost to former President Biden. I don't argue with that. But why do they have to throw that in? You're going, oh, they're just reporting the news, right? That's not true. This is all propaganda. Here, they're going to emphasize what Glenn Beck said. The administration released classified documents that, contrary to the president's argument, show not a single vote was altered in the contest. Trump didn't claim anywhere in his speech that a single vote was changed. So this is all lies and propaganda, right? Now we're going to go to the very next paragraph down to show you how bad their propaganda is. So look at how they loaded up all this darkness on Trump and doing all these side, little notes correcting Trump. That's propaganda. And then down here, we're going to read this, right? You see this? With November just 4 months away, Michigan Democratic Senate candidates Abdul El Sayed. Where's the facts about Abdul El Sayed? Why don't they tell you what he thinks, what he believes? Because they're trying to cover up what this monster is running on in Michigan. I'm just saying, if they treated him the same way they treated Trump up here and Biden won the election, because that's one way of putting it. Here's Michigan Democrat Senate candidate in Michigan, Abdul El Sayed, is pairing up with Bernie Sanders and Rep. Alexander Ocasio-Cortez in a rally because they can't let you know what this Abdul El Sayed in Michigan actually believes. So I'll rewrite this paragraph. Abdul El Sayed, the guy that said Border Patrol agents are white supremacists. The Hill could have written that, but they have to brainwash you. They could have said Abdul El Sayed, the guy that said that it was strongly for defunding the police.
There's an approach here where you abolish ICE, you fire the people who've been hired.
They didn't say that. Doug in Exile does say that. They could have said Abdul El Sayed, the guy that said that Israel was just as evil as Hamas. The guy that said when they go low about Republicans, we take them to the mud and choke them out. How about this, where Abdul El Sayed said that the terrorists during 9/11 were as bad as the United States? So this is about propaganda over that vote debate, right? I got another one here. This is Ducey taking us back to Karine Jean-Pierre when they were talking about Russia collusion, and they said that Trump stole the election, that he wasn't rightly elected in 2016.
So if we're all in agreement that it is incorrect to say the 2020 election was stolen, what about the 2016 election?
Look, I'm not going to go back into history.
It was a stolen election.
It was stolen.
Stolen. He's an illegitimate president. He's an illegitimate president. Pretending to be president.
Why do you think the president is going to such great lengths to essentially prove that he beat you?
Because he didn't.
One.
Oh, yeah. We could go on with like 40 minutes of election deniers from the Democrat Party. In fact, I'll go back because after that, it was Russia collusion in 2020. Here's the Russia collusion song, which someone did a cut of all the CNN coverage.
Russian collusion.
Trump, Russian sort of collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion. Trump, Russian metal collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, potentially collusion.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, collusion. Trump, Russia, Russian collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion. Russia hacked our election. Here comes a big change. Because all of a sudden, Trump, Russian possible collusion.
Okay, we could do this all day too. And now the new message from the Democrat propaganda wing is that Trump's speech was big nothing burger. He didn't prove any votes were actually switched or stolen. I'm going to show you how this affects even AI in New York. Watch Kathy Hochul on shutting down these data centers in New York. This is all Chinese propaganda.
That is why today I'll be signing the nation's first ever statewide moratorium on hyperscale data centers.
Everything she's saying there is a false accusation on the data center. So let's just go one by one. So she's saying that they eat up all of the power. Well, yeah, I mean, look, if you connect to the grid without producing more power and you force data centers to compete with residential ratepayers, then yeah, you could drive up utility prices. However, if you do what Chamath said and let them build behind the meter, then they bring their own power. And that's what the president has advocated for since the beginning of his administration, is let the AI companies become power companies. So that is the way to solve the energy problem or the utility problem. Then she's talking about eating up land. The reality is these data centers are a model of land use efficiency. We have a ton of land in this country, obviously. The supposed noise pollution, that's largely made up. That can be dealt with. You obviously don't want to put these things right next to a residential area, but create a little bit of distance and it's fine. The whole water consumption thing is largely a hoax.
Total hoax.
Modern data centers recirculate the water. One final thing just on the point that Hochul is making, she said it created a lot of pollution. Natural gas, which is how most of these data centers are powered, is one of the most clean burning sources of power that we have. These data centers have become the scapegoat for all of the angst that people have about AI.
They can use it as a propaganda tool because they know that we all fear AI.
You compare economic impact to all these different things, data centers are, like, honestly, one of the best things we could be building as a nation.
Yeah, and that's why Trump's building them. And that's why China's paying to throw shade at them. Here's Chamath says, why data and why now? This is the NGO industrial complex, because if you look at it, data centers barely use any water, barely use any land by comparison, and they lower electricity bills. And people are fighting this in ignorance because they bought a bunch of Chinese Democrat propaganda. And speaking of, here's Mamdani.
A new IRS report shows New York and California make up the top 10 counties losing the most tax filers and money, with Manhattan seeing nearly $1 billion in taxable income packing up and leaving to low-tax states. But Mayor Zoran Mamdani insists the wealthy should pay a little bit more to fund his socialist agenda. Listen.
I've been very clear about the fact that we live in the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and it's unacceptable that 1 in 4 New Yorkers are living in poverty.
This is just blatant, raw, communist redistribution of wealth. He's not even apologetic. They don't have to explain it. They just go, but guess what? There'll always be someone richer than you. And it does not cause job creation. Okay, I'm going to do a quick hit to my sponsor because I love Chapter so much. If you're getting ripped off on your Medicare costs, listen to this brief 15-second commercial. How's this? 15 seconds. Tricia says, oh my goodness, Doug, Chapter saved us $1,500 per year just on premiums. Compare every Medicare plan. Call 631-961-8696. And my buddies at Chapter will help you keep you from getting ripped off. This is the final conclusion and the big picture of why Democrats are working through Obama and the media to fight AI is because they want to take over all AI. So they're starting a moratorium, a pause on developing AI so that when they get back in control, they can control all of the AI to use against you. Watch this.
The number one thing slowing down the growth of Anthropic's revenue, it's not demand. I think it's the availability of compute in data centers. And so you're just kind of wondering, like, what is the point of all of this?
It's so true.
I was talking to someone in politics about this, and the theory that they had is, well, the Democrats aren't going to pause the data centers forever. They're going to pause them until they feel like they're in enough control that they can dictate all of the rules.
Democrats don't hate data centers, same way that they don't love gays, women, or blacks. They want the control and power of data centers to come into being under their watch, not under Trump's watch, so they can use the data centers against you. You want data centers to be mass developed speedily under Trump. The Democrats don't actually hate AI, same way that they didn't hate Twitter when it was working with the FBI and Joe Biden to oppress the right. But then as soon as Twitter gets purchased by Elon Musk, now they hate Twitter and they have to get after the misinformation and control it from the top down. Same way that they used to love electric cars until Elon Musk started making them, and now they're like, burn down those Tesla dealerships. It's the same thing with AI. They only hate it until they control it, and then they're going to love it, and they're going to love it right down your throat. When the Democrats take control over it, guys, it's over. We will be in prison for our free speech. You'll be in prison for going to church. They will open up the borders. If you speak against illegals, you will also be fined and imprisoned. That's my theory on it. Now you see it all exposed. You're a little smarter having watched this show, aren't you? I am, for doing the research. I learned a lot. I'm done in exile.